Blessings, 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 blessings be unto you. This is Mercedes Warwick, and welcome to the Mindfulness of Healing. I have pulled my spread, and this is the card that is singing to me to share with you this week. It is called the Balance Point, and it took me a minute because I always try to go in and do a message that's specific for this moment, right? And yesterday there was just so much going on, and I had some really deep emotional feelings about what was happening in the country, and I was all over the place. And so I slept on it, and my guidance said, this is what I'm to talk to you about today. So, oh, pillow back here. Okay, there we go. So I'm downstairs in my sanctuary, and this is very important because I think on a macro level it works, and I think on a micro level it works, and then on the inwardly level it works. So this card, you can see there's two axes. There's energy on both ends, so I always imagine that it would actually be spinning in a way. And there's this point in the middle that can be considered like a gateway or a point of neutrality in balance. And as you can see, there's black and white, and I may, on the final art, these aren't the final art, I may put a little bit of white over here and a little bit of black over here, we'll see. But the white is the active principle, the doing, and the black is the intuitive principle, the spiritual principle, the creative genius in Genesis aspect of the balance point. The point itself is neutral. So there's no right or wrong, left or right. That's all for these axis points. And so when they come into complete balance, it is actually a point of, again, neutrality and peace and silence and knowing. That's the other thing for me. And when I am in a really wonderful state of balance, there's this knowing that all is well. The rest of the spread was genius as well, but one card at a time this week, I think. So what happens in this external environment, these energies, is really and how do we come into balance, okay? And I'm going to keep it in, how do we come into balance as we're in our healing journey? I'm going to keep it very focused there. So there's a lot of different things that can happen. The first is, this morning I came downstairs, I wanted to change up my work presence, and I'm very lucky in my house. I have sort of different sanctuaries and different spaces that have different moods, right? So I woke up this morning and I said, I need to refresh my bedroom. I hadn't really, I think it's been 5 weeks now, probably about 5 weeks, since I was really going through that chemo reaction. And I just noticed that the bedroom was beginning to feel a little heavy. I opened up the windows, I opened up the curtains. I have a south-facing window. It's Las Vegas. It can get very hot, so I haven't been opening up the curtains very much. But this morning, very early on, I opened up the curtains. There's a beautiful tree right outside of my window, lots of green, a nice tall tree. And I welcomed the energy of the tree into my space, welcomed the morning sunlight into my space, and then I went and I did a tone healing. I took my gong, which is upstairs in my office. I didn't bring it, but I took my gong and I hit the gong and allowed the vibration of the sound to move through my room. And later today, I will actually turn some music on before I go to bed, again, to change the vibration in the room. I cleaned my crystals. I have a lot of crystals in my bedroom. So all of those, I saged the bedroom, and then I did a prayer and a clearing in my bedroom. Then I came downstairs and I saged the rest of the house. Now, and I'm working in my green space today because I wanted to have some living energy, and I don't know if you can hear it, but there's a fountain that's going very gently in the background. And again, I chimed and brought some vibration into the house and opened up the doors and windows. All of this is a way to begin to clear and to create a space that we can hear ourselves. I also have, I work with rocks and crystals a lot. You may have something else. This is my way, and sometimes, but the thing that brings me joy is crystals and music and plants, and Priya, who's laying down very quietly next to my feet right now. And those are the things, and my art brings me, I'm doing that because this is actually the gallery space too. You can't see anything in this shot, but there's a lot of my art in this space as well. These are the things that bring me joy. And when I come into joy, then I come into balance. The other thing that I wanted to say is how I've used the balance point is more than one thing can be true. And so I had been, because I'm on the mend at the moment, I had been very sick, but I was still alive. And I'm going to change that, but I was very sick and I was still alive, and there were areas in my life where I was vibrant. I was painting, I could sit up right, I fixed my food at times. More than one thing can be true. And so if you think about the scales of balance, or that coming into that portal, what we accept and what requires to be balanced out and how it gets balanced out may be different. So there could be two of us with the same diagnosis, on the same medication, following the same diet, and energetically we have different requirements for what's going to bring us back into homeostasis, back into peace, and back into a state of homeostasis. And how I viewed the state of normalcy or homeostasis as I was going through was how peaceful was I feeling and what was on my mind. So the radiant soul balancing and the soul ignitions, it would be so interesting because I'd pull the cards and it would be, and I set the sequence, I'd activate the sequence. And, there's times that I could feel myself coming into that state of peace, that state of quietness, the quietude within me. So I would caution you, especially when you're doing your prayer work, when you're doing your energy work, as Priya has decided to awaken here, when you're doing your prayer work, come on baby, sit. You gotta sit and lay down, right here. Sit, lay down. Yeah, I know. Sit, lay down. Good girl. Thank you. So when you're doing your prayer work, your energy work, the confirmation phrase for me is I am in balance and I am in sync, right? But for you, that to get to that same place might be I am love and I am peace, or I am life and I am vibrant. The frequencies that at the subtle levels, at the subtle levels, will be different from person to person. So just because this card, this soul ignition, worked for me as a message, because I get these cards and sometimes I'm looking, it's like, okay, there's something in my system that I need to balance out. and that I need to come into this harmonic alignment so that what is to be, can come through. I can allow it. I can accept it. I have some personal cards that I did in the Soul Ignition, and the Sacred Key card was something that came to me very early in my healing, was I am the thriving existence. So in order to be in that thriving existence, there is an allowance of being in full and complete balance on the divine fields and on the living, ever-present field, how we're living in this life. And that was part of the message for me this week. So the third thing that I'd like to say to you, and this is a little bit about what is happening in our country right now, is that the authority that balances us out inwardly is an inward authority. And in life, we talk about being in this world, but not being of this world. And I think that when we are going through a healing crisis, which is a crisis of imbalance within our body, if we get pulled emotionally, swayed emotionally to the happenings of the world, it can be a time that can cause us more stress and more fight. And we don't want to be in a fight of any kind. So my contribution when things are going kind of buzzy in the world is I sit quietly in what is mine to do. And right now, part of what is mine to do is to get out a little bit and start talking to people a little bit more. And that's partially what is mine to do. But the other piece of what is mine, see, even talking about it, I don't know if you can see, but my hands have started turning around. My hands are activating. Even as I'm talking about it, my hands are beginning to be activated and in the healing. And you can do this with me if you'd like. You just rub your hands together and let's just bathe and put our hands over our heart. We can activate our hearts and know that the exact right thing is happening at the exact right time, and that there is a blessing contained within everything. And it might be that it needs to be revealed in this moment. We might not see the entire picture in this moment, but there is a convergence, and more than one thing can be right in the world, right? More than one thing can be truth in the world. And so this is not it's my way, I believe these things, and if they don't believe these things, then they don't belong in my sphere. Two things can be true at the same time. And when we come into a respect of that, I believe that it opens up a heart space that allows a different dialogue. We're not trying to trunce something out like it has to be all of this way and all of this way. And that's part of that balancing. That's part of that coming into a space of communion and understanding in a loving way. So this card, this balance point, is not saying go and contemplate your navel. It is saying come into a place of balance so that you can be steady on your feet, understanding within your heart, open within your hearing, and come into the world, come into your space in a way that is the word that I use, because when I'm truly in balance, that is solid. And we come into that my legs feel strong, there's a strength within me, and I feel like I can manage. That's a strange word, but that's the word that's coming. I can manage, I can tolerate, I am strong enough to handle whatever is in whatever is before me. Whenever I'm feeling any type of overwhelm throughout my process, I go inward. But the thing about going inward, I go inward with the intention of coming into harmony with the divine essence and frequency that is within me. Everything goes back to coming into a remembering of that connection that strengthens and balances me. It's not necessarily to obliviate whatever's happening, to stamp it out, to put on my warrior shield. It is to come into that space of strength and allowance. And that for me is truly the balance. And then my guidance is speaking on my tongue. I haven't done that. And then coming into allowing that balance to come fully present on the divine matrix in every way, in every way. All things are possible. All things are possible. And when we come into balance and alignment with that one thing, that one thing, that balance point, that point of neutrality, when we come into that, then there is an alignment that comes and inspiration that comes with it. I have one more thing to say on this topic, and then I'm going to let you go. There is only one frequency. And so a lot of times in our spiritual work, there's the law of polarity. And the law of polarity basically says for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So there is a consequence to moving and interacting. 1 + 1 = 3. So two energies come together, that sparks a unique energy in every circumstance. We are always in a state of creation. And I think sometimes if you have any knowledge of the law of polarity, I know that I have done this early on, like 3-4 years ago. I was still saying, okay, this is present, so there's got to be an opposite that's going to balance it out to neutralize it. Another way of looking at this is that there's only one frequency. So I try very much to say the frequency. So it's in love, in life, in vibrancy, in generosity, not to be generous, but to be actually in the frequency of generosity itself. And when we look at it from that perspective, there's no adjective before it. So there's only, I'm going to use love because that's the main one. There's not unconditional love. There's only love. And we are in the frequency of love. So in love, if you hear me talk about in love, we move towards the outcome that is the highest and best for all involved in this situation. In love, through love, as love, and for love. There's only one frequency. It's not unconditional love. It's not big-hearted love. It's not compassion, because compassion is a frequency of itself. We want to be lovingly compassionate. The frequency is compassion itself. I can't wait to teach this because I had a magnificent personal session yesterday, just being in these different frequencies. And so there is the frequency of love, and on the continuum which is infinite, that we cannot see in any direction, either direction, right? We can't see that balance point of love that's going to reestablish a homeostasis, neutrality within us, a peace within us. So there's only love, and then there's not love. Right? So the further you may go in one direction, the less likely you may be to feel that, I'm looking at a puppy dog kind of love, looking at a baby, just looking at feeling your heart space as a loving environment. There's this continuum. So this balance point also can represent the frequencies in both the divine space and the living space, the actualized space that we're in. And then its vibration is moving and circulating, so that I love working with the frequency of love, because as we're moving and circulating that frequency up and down our I call it the lotus, up and down, fertilizing the lotus blossom, right? So we're coming from the mud up to the sun and then back down, and we're moving those frequencies through our body, those balancing frequencies through our body. So that was a lot, but I want you to just begin to watch your language. That is the message here, is to watch your language and be in the frequency. I want to be in the frequency of compassion. I want to be in the frequency of prosperity. I want to be in the frequency of contentment. I want to be in the frequency of satisfaction. Satisfaction plus contentment equals, from my personal guidance, satisfaction and contentment equals happiness in each now moment, within each breath. Am I satisfied? Am I content? I want to be in those frequencies. I don't want to be trying to pull up the balancing frequency for contentment. I want to be in the frequency itself. So we lose all of the language of description, adverbs and adjectives. As we were doing frequency work, we just release them, so that I can be as I am God is, right? I want to be in that frequency of the divine that is the most appropriate to balance, to create that space of neutrality, of contentment, of satisfaction, because that's where the healing is. Okay? Blessings, 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 blessings be unto you. Namaste. You are my heart.